Welcome to another ep of Cappy Hour. Appreciate you being here. Today I'm going to be touching on a few little random topics that have been circulating my mind recently. So I thought I'd start the ep with creating an ideal environment for success. I feel as though I've touched on this quite some, the idea of nurturing yourself as an individual to then in turn be able to water the collective. But I thought, why not revisit it? Because it's actually quite powerful stuff. So, the idea of creating an environment that is ideal for success, in my eyes, comes down to the small little daily choices that we make every day that benefit the collective: exercise, quality diet, connection to self, connection to other. And a new one, which I didn't know was so important, but low inflammation in the body. So something that I've been doing recently is veering away from anything that's going to cause inflammation in the body, which is evidently just processed junk and all the seed oils and that jazz. And God, I just feel like I've been noticing such a shift. What I didn't realize and what I'm beginning to really understand is that these small daily choices that we make that can sometimes feel a little bit monotonous and a little bit annoying. I wish I could say that I feel that because they bring me so much, so I don't actually feel that, but I think I can resonate with at the start when I began implementing these small things. I was kind of just like, this is annoying. I'd rather just eat chippies and just like take drugs and not really exercise that discipline. But now I realize on the other side of it, seeing just how much I've been rewarded mentally and then also outwardly in, like, I guess, manifestations. And I just thought, this is the coolest shit ever. But what I didn't realize is that all those little daily incremental changes affect your electromagnetic field. So my focus is to get my cells to dance. I want things to just be in a seamless flow. I want my aura to be as positive as possible. I want to be somebody who people feel like they can come to talk to. I want to just be something that is benefiting us as a whole. So I make these choices, yeah, with the greater good as my biggest intention, I'll say, without sounding like I'm trying to be a fucking saint, because we all know I'm not. These things add up to such a bigger picture. And on the other end of the spectrum, which is something that I have a little bit of trouble surrounding myself with, if your life is filled with addiction and shitty food and just like basically low energy decisions, it makes the environment way less optimal to receive the magic that actually wants to come through. So I feel as though when we're not really making those small daily choices to show up as our best self, it manifests as more fear, a reduced sense of self, less downloads. So basically, the more blocked and unaware we're going to be. So I've talked about this a little bit, but I see a download as like the clearer we are energetically, the more we're doing these little bits and bobs, the more information can kind of come through. I mean, I think if you're listening to this, you understand like the basics of energy, I guess. And I think often we can, for example, we see a woman who exudes confidence, maybe her posture is like straight and she just looks healthy and glowy and whatever, and she's attractive. I feel that with women. I'm like, I'm attracted to that woman, not sexually, but I just feel like I'm drawn, we'll say. Less attracted, more drawn. And the same with men who are just like exude health, for example. I've got a friend who just like is literally a vision of health. He just glows. And it's so important to him that every day he makes these choices to exercise, to eat good food, to read, to be off socials, to do all these things that are going to really benefit him. And I see it. I see it so clearly with my own eyes that it works for him and then it affects me positively. I like just like using that as a nice little guideline. This is kind of getting into the woo-woo, but I really do believe in auric fields, and you can really see that. You can see a negative energy, I feel. You can see a darkness kind of looming over somebody. I mean, I'm assuming that you can see, but I probably shouldn't do that. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you can see people who have more of a darker energy. You can just kind of feel it. A dingy kind of dude. You just feel like, fuck, there's something about that guy that just feels off. Sorry to make it about a guy. You can feel that with a woman as well. We're not pro women or pro men. We're just fucking pro people, pro everything here. I do really like the idea of the more positive changes you make in your day to day, the more disciplined you are, the more will you practice, the more magic comes. And then on the other end of the specky, the more you kind of blow it, fuck up, don't exercise that will, do more drugs, do a lot in excess, the more the universe is just not really going to be on your side. So it's like, it's probably in your best interest to be making those small little changes to reap the benefits. I just really love that idea that you can do those things, feel good quite quickly. You can notice little shifts like that. And then from there, it extends out to your close people. They feel like they can come to you because you're a clear source of good energy for them. And yeah, it's just a steamroller effect from there. But it is quite crazy. I was listening to a podcast this morning and the potty was saying that from those like lower vibrational energies there, that's where cancer is often activated from. And I think a lot of people say, oh, cancer's genetic and stuff, but I believe that it's something that we can all kind of activate in ourselves through lifestyle choices. The power is really in our hands, and I think I probably come across as quite a hard ass a lot of the time, and I think I am a bit of a hard ass, but beginning to like that about myself because it motivates me. And I really do just see everyone as so fucking capable. So it does come from a good place. And I'm not trying to be righteous, not trying to be like my way, this way. I'm just trying to say that fuck, it has worked for me. I feel like I've just had so much trouble in my life, and then when I started to just be a little bit fucking like more like with myself, magic ensued. I can't help but feel just so excited about the benefits that have come to me. So I just really wanted to share that those little choices that you make every day really do fucking make up just like a huge big gift in the long term. If you're making those little choices every day, clappo, clappo, clappo. And if you're feeling like, man, I feel like I could tweak a few little things, cut back here, do a little bit of that, do a little bit of this, then go for it, because the rewards come quickly and it's just about noticing the little changes. The topic 2 that I'd like to talk about is being strong in your character. So I feel like recently a lot of people have been testing my character, and like, which is cool. What don't kill you make you stronger. But if you have something to say and you've got a voice and you're sharing it, there's going to be obviously people that like it, people that don't agree, people that agree. There's just going to be a concoction of all the above, which in my mind it's a good thing because it means that there's some sort of movement. The way that I like to see it is the people are going to observe you and I guess judge you from their lens. It's up to you to decide whether what they say rings true and what sticks and also what isn't yours. I've had a few people like offer reflections because I've said to my friends like, please pull me up on things, or if you observe this, let me know, preferably in a loving way. A cool tool I find for constructive criticism is taking a bit more of a backseat approach. So viewing it more in a stoic way or viewing it more objectively, I'll say. I think it can be tricky with this because it comes back to blind spots. Sometimes you do things and you can't necessarily be completely aware of yourself at all times. There's just too much like going on, too much to focus on, and a lot of outside stimulation, a lot of internal stimulation. So it can be a lot. So I find that taking the emotion out of it is really cool because I'm an emotional gal. And if it still doesn't really make sense, this person's reflection, you can ask them, hey, like I said before, would you mind pulling me up when you notice me doing this? For example, I know that I can be a little bit righteous, like a little bit, it's not my intention, but I can be a little bit like, this is the way to do it. So I asked my friend, when you notice me doing that, can you let me know? And it's been really cool, her pulling me up and being like, oh, you're doing it in a soft way. And then I get to just meet that with love and not like hate myself into change. So that's been really cool. I think often people can bring things up and they can misconstrue your intention as well. That's where it comes down to analyzing it, seeing if it's theirs, seeing if it's yours, seeing if it's something that you like about yourself or something that you'd like to change. That righteousness I find is like a really good example. When I first realized that I was being righteous or somebody pulled me up on it, I was like, oh, that's not a trait that I'd like to possess. Like I'd much rather just like live it, be it. If you like it, come on board and let's all just support each other. But that's been a really cool one to just dip my little tootsies into and to try and just tweak. And it's cool to just do it with love instead of with hate, because I really just don't think that we change from environments of just hate, which is something that I honestly just have recently learned. I thought for so long that I could hate myself into change, but love works a little bit better. Another example I'll use of this, which is such an interesting one to me, and I don't know, you guys might agree, you might disagree, whatever, but I like this example a lot because it was such a process for me. So I met this guy on a road trip, we got along, hit it off so well, and he said to me, I really like that you're powerful and ostentatious. And I like heard the powerful and I was like, oh, that's cool. I never really saw myself as powerful, but I like that and cool. I'm going to try to observe more of that moving forward because, wow, I really didn't see myself as a woman of power, but like epic. What a compliment. And then the ostentatious, I was kind of like, what does that even mean? So I Googled it and it was just like showy, like displays of just like showiness. And like, I just like kind of took that and I was like, surely fucking not, because that is actually the opposite of what I'd ever want to be. That one hurt. That hurt the heart. But then I thought, all right, there's got to be some validity in here. Where can I see it? So I started observing myself for a few days, kind of journaling on it and just being like, all right, actually, I think I might have, when he said it, I think I might have fucking reflected on it. Let's see. I'm going to call him Jeffrey for the purpose of this podcast, but I wrote, Jeffrey made me really question myself, and I've come to the conclusion that I don't see myself as someone who is showy or wants/does thrive off that style of living. I live such a kind of cheap and recycled sort of life. Maybe I flex my car a little bit, but I don't really hate that because it's just such a tool for fun, that car. It's more of an appreciation and a love. But yeah, I saw it there and I was just like, okay. But I just said, I just don't see it. Anyway, not going to put energy into thinking about it anymore. Just got to remind myself that I have 29 years of experience with myself as opposed to him only knowing me for a day and a half. I'm still open to hearing what he has to say though. I just wouldn't place it as one of my defining characteristics. And then I was just like, yeah, sweet, wrap it up. But then I think I fucking went back into it because it took me a few days to really get over that one. Hey, I'm fucking so sensitive to people's critique sometimes. When I feel like it's somebody who is valuable, even though I'd met the guy, I'd fucking known the guy for 3 seconds, I still just thought, this guy's really intelligent. We've spent some like really close, beautiful moments together. Surely there's something in here for me. And then it was just like really cool to just like reflect on that, take it. I was just like, I'm a showy cunt. And then I just like kept like ping ponging between the two. And in the end, I just came to the conclusion that it's not actually the person that I am, or it's not my intention. If I appear as that, then maybe it's something that he could reflect on within himself. Another example, I used to be a bit fond of this dude and we'd be talking online and one time he made this remark. I can't remember, it was something like your butt ends up online quite a bit. And I remember just being like, whoa, off the bat, that's really, I feel offended, but then I thought, it's true. I am gallivanting about in my swimmers quite some. And I felt at that stage in my life probably a little bit less empowered than I am now. So it was like, it was a cool reflection. I felt like, although it didn't feel like he communicated in a way that was overly effective or kind, I sort of took it and used it as an agent to become more respectful of myself in a way. It was something that made me reevaluate how I was showing up online and things like that, because I don't want to be someone who's cheap or anything like that. And I although I didn't really love that, I still thought there is something in that for me. I care what people think about me if they're close and they're important to me. But if some random person was to just be like, yeah, you look fucking cheap, your ass is on, I would have just been like, whatever. But I think, again, when the person feels like a person of value, I'll take it on. And I think at that time there was just so much more circling around like my need for validation and things like that. And at that time I saw social media as like the more you show, the more engagement you get and things like that. Now I'm just like, ugh. I can't believe that's where I was at that time, but it's true. Sex do be selling. So yeah, it's basically just choosing what sticks, what resonates, and then moving forward from there, leaving behind what doesn't, realizing as well that like the way that somebody comes at you with their reflection says a lot about the way they kind of treat themselves. So my friend who said sometimes you can be righteous, she didn't even say it like that. She literally noticed herself being righteous and then she softly was just like, yeah, I've been righteous. What about you, sort of thing. And then there's people who can be like, yeah, you are. And then there's people who can be like, I like that about you. So the person who thought that I was showy, maybe there's something in that for him. And the person that said to me, your ass is on the gram a lot, maybe there's confidence things for him. Fuck knows. I didn't sort of see it like that. I didn't put too much energy into like, what does it mean about them? I was just kind of like, what's the nugget in here for me? I wanted to talk a little bit about communication techniques that I've been vibing. I think I'm a good communicator to certain people, and I think the more I move away from things that have hindered me in the past in terms of like addictions and things like that, the closer I can get to being in tune with myself and the better I can be for other people. So communication techniques are really kind of cool. It sounds probably a little bit robotic using techniques in relationship, but I think it's actually pretty fruitful because, you're coming from here and I'm coming from here. And there's all these deciding factors that dictate the way I show up. And there's all these different factors that decide the way in which you show up. And like that person can be sleepy. They can be feeling more erratic. They can be feeling more impulsive. They can be feeling just like an array of different things. And I think it's really just important to apply grace in communication and to know that like my experience isn't your experience, yours is not mine. So yeah, I think that's where these little techniques come in really handy. So I like this one, saying to someone when something bothers you, saying, when you do this, I find myself feeling this. Can I ask you what you mean by that? And I think that technique of applying more curiosity, so beneficial, because it's just like no pointing fingers, no this. It's just like laying it out very stoically. Another one is when you say this, I interpret it like this. Would you mind elaborating so I don't misconstrue what you're meaning to say? So again, tackling it from more of a, I'd like to understand where you're coming from angle. Realizing that a lot of the time I'm saying this and you'll interpret it like this, and then that can fully trigger you. But my intention was actually this. And so there's just a lot of room for a roller coaster. So I think by using that technique of curiosity and what do you mean by that, that can just like pave the way for just way clearer communication. So I wanted to talk a little bit about another concept that I learned from my acupuncturist a few weeks ago. Freaking changed my life. I don't know. I think long term it's going to do even more, but when something just clicks. That was one of those moments where I started to implement it straight away, and bit of resistance at the start, but then I was like, oof, gaining momentum, and it was, I guess, in a way, rewiring your brain to just automatically work like that. It was really cool. The tip is, where can I be more loving? So where can I meet myself in more love? So I was noticing that I've done this for years where I have all these rules for myself, and if I meet all the rules, like I exercise, I eat good food, I do this, I think good thoughts, all that, then it means that I can love myself. But if I veer away and indulge here and then fucking have a doobie there or whatever, it's like I've lost a bit of control and I feel a little bit less perfect. That's what we'll say. So I was noticing that when I was being, we'll say, perfect, I was having a very easy time loving myself and being grateful. But as soon as I'd veer away and overdo it a little bit, we'll say, I was having a lot of trouble meeting myself in love. And that was a really cool thing for him to observe and for him to give me that tool is, where can I be more loving? So I think applying that has been really cool in relationship as well, with all of my friends and my mum and like daddy-o and stuff, just being more accepting. And yeah, it's been huge mostly to self, I've got to say, because it's like if there is all these rules and conditions placed upon you, it just doesn't leave much room for grace. That's a really cool one to just like wire into the brain as a bit of a mantra, because that's again how we rewire our subconscious minds. Also on top of that is noticing certain things about yourself or people's reflections. And for example, I can be quite a perfectionist in ways. I've realized that I was trying to become less of a perfectionist, trying to be a bit more gung-ho in ways and trying to like color outside the lines. But then I realized I actually really like that about myself. I like that I'm particular in ways and things like that. So as another mantra, I actually like that about myself. What I also realize is that every positive trait kind of has a negative side to it too, like perfectionism. It's epic. It can keep things quite in order. Things happen the way they're packaged up like this. Yeah, perfectionism means you do a good job, you produce something that you're proud of, and yeah, less room for shame and negative feelings, I guess. But then on the other end of the spectrum, if you don't feel perfect, it's just like steamroll effect from there, where you just feel like what you do just has no value. So yeah, I think I really love that. There's certain things that I've been kind of shunned for that I do really like about myself. So kind of just being like, I get to decide, and then where do I put my energy? Yeah, so back to rules. I think rules are really, really fucking epic, and they keep you in check and in flow, but also knowing that when you do veer away, because it's human and it's actually important to veer away from those rules, you get to just be kind to yourself still. You don't have to have all these things checked off and all that to just be able to access positive feelings. It's not how it works. You can still love yourself when you're not achieving, when you're not doing, when you're not creating. Like, there's still room for that love. There's always room for that love, actually. If you have gone through a stage in your life where you have been particularly hard on yourself, I feel like it is trying to teach you something, but I feel like loving yourself into change is much more beneficial than hating yourself into change. So that's one I've really been enjoying playing with, coming from a background of really being hard on myself, and then in turn being hard on the people around me. Comes from a place of wanting more for myself and more for others, but when I realized that I could choose love instead, it was just like bang, like fucking my brain exploded. So this is really an interesting one that I'm still kind of reflecting on at the moment, which is the fact that like there's a lot of people in this life that don't necessarily want to grow and want to like better themselves. And because I'm so fucking obsessed with the idea of personal development and more information and just like understanding certain things and parts about myself, and hopefully so that I don't pass them on to my kiddos, yeah, I feel locked into that. It means that there will also be people in my life that aren't into that, aren't into personal development. And I just really wanted to get to a stage where I could not turn my head on those people, because it doesn't really feel good, and it's kind of ends up being a bit of a codependent thing. You know, you're so addicted to the idea of them changing for your own benefit. It ain't really ideal. So without tooting my horn, I am somebody that I don't really actually know what it is, but a lot of people seem to flock to me in ways for advice or for talking about things that can be quite painful. I don't know, could be a testament to what I'm fucking really trying for with this stuff, but I'll take it as a huge compliment. But had a little bit of trouble with in the past was not taking on their things and their energy and their things like that. And I remember once talking to my psychologist about it, and I said, I hang out with her and I say all these things and I feel like I'm repeating myself, and she never changes and she just goes back to the guy and stuff. And I was just taking it on, and she just goes, man, it's showing you your blind spots. It's showing you where you're not fully sturdy. And I went back to that relationship, that friendship with the girl, and I decided that I was going to use it as a bit of an experiment to not take her things on and to not give and give and give so much, because again, that ends up being codependent too. I'm so addicted to the idea of her bettering herself. I'm just suffering because none of the things that I'm saying are getting through, and that's back to that righteous nature that I've been talking about. But I really like the idea of like, can I love that person without becoming them? So when I'm noticing in friendships where I'm like, oh, this is just like a little bit just not ideal, I don't feel like I'm necessarily receiving as much as I'm giving, because that does tend to happen quite a bit. I do, I'm a freak. I give quite a bit. I really actually like that about myself more and more. I feel quite generous, and I do like to try and treat people equally and try and just like make people feel special and things like that. But it does at times hit me in the balls. So yeah, that's been a really cool tip, is to just not take those people's things on. Have a bit of a field around me and just like, yeah, focus on not just like giving, 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 giving all the time. Because it's not even what they're asking for from me. I'm just feeling like I'm obliged to. It can be quite hard to not judge those people who are in those cycles, but you can't judge someone into changing. So I think, again, best to, in a way, lead by example. And if someone is to ask you, you can offer up a piece of advice. And if you notice that they like what you have to say, then a little bit more, but just baby steps. You don't have to give the whole fucking meal deal. If you feel like you're in the same kind of pool with your parents who are just like from a different generation and they're like sort of stuck in their ways or in a victim mindset or in a this is the way things are, I'm not changing for no one thing. I feel you. I fucking feel you. If you're there, it's just kind of like reapplying that can I love them without becoming them? And also applying just humor and curiosity to them, because if you apply more curiosity as to like where they came from and their past and things like that, people like when you show interest, firstly. But secondly, you'll just get to know a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of who they are and why they are the way they are. So that one's really cool. I'm going to touch on resentment a little bit because this one is one that I have definitely battled with. Sometimes caring about someone means saying some things you don't want to say but need to be said. So this is something that I've held myself back from so many fucking times because I wanted to spare that person. And then in the end, I didn't say the thing. So then I just resent, constantly just like repeating the same monologue internally. And I think something that I experienced a lot of in my childhood was not being able to speak my voice. I got pretty squashed in my childhood, not gonna lie. So I didn't really get to speak up. Resentment is basically unexpressed truth, is what I realized. So now that I realize that, I'm just gonna have to express my truth from a less emotional standpoint, more stoic. And I'm excited to see where things go. I think it's really important to just like speak your truth and to just be a little bit clear and calculated about it. In the past, I've been quite leaky with some of my communication, acting on like the first emotion, just being like blah, and then just being like, oh, so much shame because I've just like overdone it with the amount of things that I've said, instead of being more just like, this is the way things are, this is the way that I see it. More of a stoic approach, which these guys can really teach us something. I got to say, it's really cool. It's really fucking cool. A lot of the time I want to say things, but I don't say them because I don't want to hurt their feelings or I don't want to be wrong or whatever it is. But what I realize is that from not speaking up, you hold that person back from their full potential. And that means they're not going to level up and you kind of enable them to stay on the frequency that they're at. So I've vowed to myself that from here on in, I'm not going to have this like full emotional kind of approach. It's going to be more of a lay things out on the table, apply that curiosity, and just see what kind of comes from it. I think generally, if you come at conflict like that with more of a stoic and curious approach, you can probably meet in the middle a lot easier. Moving forward, I'll let you know how that works for me. I like to do a lot of stuff, a lot of work with my mind and meditation and things like that, and understanding how we are not our thoughts. Simple, kind of fucking pretty complex though, because the ego is so strong and can be so powerful. It's just a lot. It's a big freaking concept to grasp. I really like something that my kinesiologist told me a few years ago was my thoughts are my friends. You know, sometimes it's hard to control the thoughts. You feel like, fuck, they're coming out of nowhere. Why am I thinking that? I think creating a bit of an internal world that's quite positive is super beneficial. So I've been repeating that quite a bit. My thoughts are my friends. Who goes there? Get out of here. Do you want to come on for a surprise question? This is Jalan. He's just coming on as a surprise guest. How you feeling?
Pop quiz.
Pop quizzle. We've just been...
Do I talk extra loud?
Oh.
And I can hear you on the mic?
Yes.
Perfect.
We've just been touching on some communication techniques. Gel has been a major help in my approach to communication. Communicating more stoically, we're talking. So,
Stoic communication.
what is your biggest tip for healthy communication?
Biggest tip for healthy communication is definitely having the courage to have the conversation. You can't have healthy communication without a layer of truth to what you're talking about either. If what you're talking is just mad shit and you're just telling the other person what they want to hear, I wouldn't call that healthy communication, and I wouldn't call that bounds for a healthy friendship or relationship. You have to deal with the fact that healthy communication means honest communication, and that can sometimes be tricky to navigate. You don't want to have conversations that might be painful for the other person, but not having that conversation may actually be more painful down the line. So by being maybe not forthright or honest in your approach, you sever the relationship even further, or maybe you miss an opportunity to learn something new yourself or to teach someone something new. So that's a rather big disservice, I might say. It extends even further to when people don't want to have confrontation. I was speaking about this the other day, but they say, like, a lot of people say, oh, I just don't like confrontation. And what's funny about that is, who likes confrontation? No one seriously sits there and goes, I love confrontation. You know, I'm sitting here just zinging on the idea of confronting. I mean, some people do, narcissists and psychopaths and all the rest of it, but actual, you know, well-adjusted human beings, no one likes having that conversation. It's like a muscle that you train over time. So train it.
Give me some skin. That was lit.
It's good.
That was so decent. Bibs, can you come on just for a secret? Come here.
Hello.
Hello, we have Bibbles in town. So I want to ask you, why is healthy communication important?
I think like people are so different, and I feel like we live and we experience so many things separately that when you combine like someone like life's experience with someone else, you really have to be open to understand the other person's perspective. And also, I feel like also a lot when people are having conversations and you absorb like a new information or you hear a new perspective that you're not used to. I feel like it's also important for the person who is communicating, letting you have your time to absorb and process what this person just said. Because some people, I have an example, like my really good friend Anastasia. We have this rule between our friendship, which is like every time we have like maybe a more deep conversation between the two of us, sometimes we say something to each other that we don't want to hear or we don't like to hear because it's not always easy. But then, like, I know I can tell her whatever I want, but I need to let her go home, process what I just said, and then eventually next week, after 3 days, 1 hour, she'll be back to me and be like, oh, look, I just thought about what you told me the other day, and I think it makes total sense, or makes no sense at all. And it's so interesting. It's so cool that everyone can look at things in a different way. So I think it's good to respect that.
So good. Yeehaw. Well,
I'll let you continue.
thank you for coming on. Thank you, angels, for listening. It's been a bloody whirlwind. Thank you, special guest Jolan and Bibs.